invest in refugees, businesses, and please make access to our documentations to be much easier.
It would be good if larger organizations would provide additional funding for similar projects.
CBOs that are doing an incredible job, they are driving big impact in refugee camps.
Looking at how we can sustainably support refugees, and that is the point at which then we came up with the co-creation with IFC.
Welcome to State of Africa. I'm Jeff Morton with the Africa Leadership and Dialogue Institute. We begin with some thought-provoking numbers. Did you know that refugee-led businesses in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya generate over $56 million each year? This is according to a joint report by the UNHCR and the World Bank, a powerful testament to the potential of displaced communities. Now, at the recent Africa Forum on Displacement 2025 held in Nairobi, private sector leaders from across the continent gathered to share solutions for displaced communities. At the heart of those solutions was capital. We begin by exploring how financial institutions are unlocking opportunities for young displaced persons.
Salah, let me begin with you. You've played a key role in de-risking private investments in very fragile contexts through initiatives like the risk-sharing facility with Equity Bank and the Kakuma Kalabai Challenge Fund. So, I mean, these really do demonstrate this approach actually has a long-term resilience for companies' operations. So let's talk to that, and let's talk about the risks that are associated with this.
The theme over here is all about collaboration, and this comes in line with IFC's strategy of identifying suitable, strong partners and collaborating with them, the like-minded partners, in order to establish and execute solutions to address developmental issues. And in this case, we're talking about issues related to refugees and host communities. So when we're talking about the risks associated with them, we have to bear in mind that these are displaced communities and displaced personnels. So there's a need for financing, there's a need for job creation, there's a need to sort of develop the economies and develop the markets within which they're operating. In doing so, and in addressing these risks, we've had several interventions, and I can speak about a couple in Kakuma. So one of the interventions that we've had is the Kakuma Kalube Challenge Fund, and for those who are not very familiar with it, so this is IFC's first refugee-focused intervention in sub-Saharan Africa, with the purpose of addressing issues and sort of developing and unlocking the potential of the refugees and the hosts within these communities. The other intervention, a more recent one, is with our strong partner bank, Equity Bank, which is the risk-sharing facility that you mentioned. And for, a very quick explanation, risk-sharing facility is basically we partner with this bank, and we agree that they will be on lending to refugees and stakeholders in these host communities, and IFC will be assuming 50% of the risk. So this kind of gives us more engagement in this, and we understand a bit more about the issues and so on. And it's not only confined to that. In doing so also, we engage with the regulators over there to identify any issues related to the bankability in the case of the risk-sharing facility, the bankability of these refugees, and we address these issues. So issues would be along the lines of security, KYC, and so on. Under the fund, for example, we also engaged with the regulator and to facilitate and to develop the operating environment. So issues related to availing information that touches on the policies, that touches on the processes of establishing and obtaining permits for establishing their businesses and so on. So in that sense, we identify the risks and we try to develop the enabling environment, so to speak, and also attract more private investments in these host communities. In doing so, we're creating jobs by supporting these businesses and giving them finance. in creating these jobs as well and developing these businesses, you're actually increasing or maybe introducing new services within these communities. So it's all kind of interrelated in a way. Also, the other factor is that in providing the technical support, you also engage with the borrowers themselves, so you look into their business models and you provide whatever technical support you can. You address issues in order for them to sort of fortify their business models and address any risks over there. And again, it's all interrelated. You provide the funding, you provide risk mitigation, you develop their business models, and ultimately you're developing the sector, you're developing the bankability, the enabling environment, and you're attracting new investments within these host communities. Finally, I think it's a holistic approach that IFC sort of applies within these communities. It's a holistic approach, it's a collaborative approach. I think collaboration is key. You have to sort of present your strengths, and you have to identify the right partners to collaborate with. All of these engagements were collaborative efforts. We also have other partners along with Equity Bank, developmental institutions, other funds, the governments themselves in doing so in order to address all of these issues. Maybe I'll stop there.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us the kind of an in-depth version of how this actually works. And then we'll move to Equity Bank. Sarah Lynn, thank you as well. Thank you very much for being with us. I mean, Equity Bank has got a real interesting way, because you've leveraged risk-sharing facilities with international finances to ensure financial inclusion of forcibly displaced people, which is incredibly important. But I suppose the question that needs to be asked is, what steps need to be taken to transition borrowers from de-risked portfolios to commercially viable, unguaranteed lending? How do we go about doing this?
We have gotten into a partnership with IFC, and that came against the bedrock of other conversations that we were having with various partners around supporting refugees both in urban settings and in urban camp settings and urban settings. And we did a little bit of work as far as that was concerned. We had a little bit of what we'd call proof of concept. And so IFC came in then to strengthen the work that we were doing and to help us to scale to a large extent. And so the lessons we have learned, to your question, number one is the need to strengthen the borrower's creditworthiness. Because essentially here we are talking about the partner behind the whole program being IFC, and then there is equity, and then now there is the third party being the borrower. And for us, it's very, very important to have that keenness in terms of the person that we are lending to. I have listened to our brother from South Sudan, John, and I've heard you in terms of supporting beyond education. And we have many other programs that we are running, as I come back to the question, beyond the Wings to Fly and the education component. And these are programs that are available probably in our website. You'll be able to see what else we are doing in terms of supporting vulnerable populations in areas like financial inclusion, in areas around energy and environment and climate change, in areas of skills building, in social protection and so on. So we can have a conversation after this so that then we have an understanding of what else we have been able to do, both for the refugee community, for the host community, and for the populations that we serve across the region. That said, the borrower to us is very important, and their capacity in terms of how they manage their businesses. So looking at how you support them in financial literacy, in empowering them with business development skills, how you enable them to formalize or register their businesses, and so on. Because then once their creditworthiness is built, once they're able to track how their businesses are going, then they become better borrowers. And in essence, you can be able to graduate them from guarantee supported lending to fully, or what we'd call commercially viable ventures. The next thing that we have noticed or have land works well is where you have a graduated mechanism, so that then you have iterated departure from guarantees. And that means then you start with small grants, or rather small loans, which are fully guaranteed. Then you can graduate them to larger loans that are partially guaranteed, and then eventually you can push the loans to fully commercial. And those are concepts that we are still testing with what we are doing with IFC. But that tends to work very well, so that then you don't fully move from guarantees, but you make it a phased transition. The next thing is around looking at customized products. So we do not look at a one-size-fits-all approach. You look at context-specific products, so that then as we are customizing or designing the products, we bring in an element of innovation. And it's innovation in terms of maybe even the collateral that we ask for. We don't go for traditional collateral. We'll be probably looking at movable assets. We'll be looking at social collateral, where you group the beneficiaries or the customers in groups, or bring them into how they are organized in society naturally. So form them into groups, especially for women who have a social orientation, and then lend to them in that setup. And that has worked very, very well. Finally, there is an element of also tracking repayments. And as you track, then you're forming credit history. So you build that history for the customers. And once you build the history, then there's also an element of sharing it across financial institutions, if that is then going to be beneficial across financial institutions. So whatever credit registry we build as equity, we should be able then to share it with other institutions, so that if they would want to get into the same, for example, household and support in terms of financial inclusion, they have something to reference as far as that is concerned. I think essentially those are the key ones that have worked for us, among several others. And of course, partnerships are key. Because what we've been able to achieve so far with the guarantee is based on our partnership with IFC, our very strong partnership with UNHCR, because this whole conversation around our involvement in the refugee space is primarily focused maybe on our purpose, which is transforming lives, giving dignity, expanding opportunities for wealth creation, and a lot of partnerships that we have gotten into within that purpose, especially with UNHCR, starting off as cash-based assistance, programming conversation, and then we move to durable solutions and looking at how we can sustainably support refugees, and that is the point at which then we came up with the co-creation with IFC. So a lot of partners, we are working with a lot of partners across the region. So when we talk about this guarantee that we are running with IFC, it's been informed by a lot of conversations with other partners and dialogues that have brought us to a point where we look at this as the most viable approach in terms of durable solutioning for refugees.
Thomas, we happened to meet on the flight down, and we sort of enjoyed Kakuma separately in our own ways, and we had a very brief time to just talk a little bit about what Proparco does, a development finance institution. But I suppose a question we need to ask is, how does the model of Proparco's financing balance investment viability with challenging business environments? And at the same time, perhaps maybe you can talk to us about some opportunities, because I know you said you saw so many opportunities in Kakuma.
Thank you so much, Lian.
Thank you.
And before I start answering, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate this conference, and I really appreciated the visit yesterday. There is a very high level of positive energy, and it's very inspiring to be here, so thanks a lot to the organizers. I'm having a great day. Just to explain in 2 words what Proparco is, because I'm aware that not many people know us actually here. So Proparco is a French government development finance institution. So we invest in private sector projects for sustainable impact in 115 countries in the world. Our portfolio, just to give you rough figures, is 8 billion euros, and we commit about 3 billion euros a year. As part of this strategy, Proparco highlights the fact that we need to be proactive and to have a very proactive strategy when it comes to investing in fragile and conflict-affected states and in LDCs. That's a central pillar of our strategy. Our commitments in fragile and conflict-affected states, by the way, we are using the World Bank list when we say this, was 323 million last year, which is an increase over the last years. And so that's about 11 or 12% of our portfolio in fragile and conflict-affected states today. And when you had LDCs, that's above 20%, so which is not too bad. Our main investments in fragile countries last year were in Nigeria, in Mozambique, in Chad, and also Palestine and Ukraine, because we also work around the world. But 2/3 of all our investments in fragile and conflict-affected states last year were in Africa. Africa is really our strong priority. So I want to say, when operating in fragile and conflict-affected states, there is a tension between our mandate as a development finance institution, which is to fight against poverty, and poverty is increasingly concentrated in fragile and conflict-affected states. It's over half of the global poor today are in countries which are fragile or conflict-affected. So this tension between needing to invest there and the need also to manage our risks. And so blended finance is an answer to that. When I say blended finance, I want to highlight that it's very important for us, but most of it is actually in-house blended finance. So we are able to use resources that are given to us by the French government, by the European Union, to de-risk ourselves and to finance more risky projects. In total, last year, about half of our projects were in some way relying on blended finance mechanisms. 3/4 of that was actually to de-risk the investments that we are making. And then the rest was either loan subsidies, so trying to make the loan cheaper for our clients, or technical assistance. And by technical assistance, I also want to stress that what we need to do more in the market is what we call upstream activities in IFC's jargon, or pre-investment technical assistance. So we actually need to help our clients before we actually look at an investment opportunity, which is not typically what most financial institutions do or most DFIs do. But we understand that when we invest in fragile and conflict-affected states, we actually need to help our clients to fulfill whatever criteria we have, or to fill the gaps that they have, for example, on compliance issues or ESG risk management issues. Sometimes it's also on conflict risk management, which is important. And so we are doing more and more of this in fragile and conflict-affected states. Actually, last year we joined our fellow British and Dutch colleagues, so BII and FMO, in a partnership called ARIA, which is really about going deep in a few African markets. So the countries are Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, DRC, and Ethiopia, and Togo and Benin. I almost forgot. In these markets, we have people on the ground, consultants permanently. We are able to help the companies we are looking at, and to work with them even for 2 years before we actually are in a position to invest, because we understand that we need to be proactive and we need to help the companies to be investable before we can invest in them. We can just wait for the companies to be ready. Yeah. When it comes to forced displacements, a couple of points. I wanted to say that, first of all, forced displacement is increasingly in the radar, or a topic in the DFI community. Obviously, IFC has done it for quite a long time, and by the way, thanks to IFC. But also, European DFIs are increasingly looking at forced displacement as a topic. We are increasingly discussing on it. And Proparco, we have a commitment from the top, from our CEO, to do more and more investments in forced displacement context. We have done a project, for example, last year in Uganda on microfinance institution, to help 2 microfinance institutions in Uganda, UGAFOD and Vision Fund, to do more lending to refugees there. We are partnering with a foundation called Grameen Crédit Agricole on this topic. And we are looking right now at 3 other opportunities with partners such as ICRC, the Red Cross movement, and also Mercy Corps on access to finance and on energy. So my message here is that we are in a key moment, I think, because forced displacement is increasingly recognized as a topic by DFIs, and we kind of need to prove the case. So DFIs are all about transactions. We need to demonstrate that, okay, this is an important subject, but this is also a market in which we can have successful transactions. I think we can really achieve quite a lot, in particular in two sectors in which DFIs have already references of transactions in very complex environments. The two sectors I have in mind are financial inclusion and energy. We have projects, for example, in Kivu, actually with IFC, with an off-grid company. We have a project with actually FMO in Chad on an off-grid company. We are doing a project in IT. So if we can do investments on energy access with off-grid in this context, the leap to do it in forced displacement context is pretty small, I think, and it's really achievable, and it's something we can really do. And the same goes for financial inclusion. So I think we are really at a point, and this conference is very really pertinent for us, because we really need to now make things happen, at least in these two sectors, because I really think we have a track record, we have transactions that we are comfortable with, and we have blended finance mechanisms in place, so we can get going, I think.
Amazing.
If there's one clear takeaway from that session, it's that success relies on collaboration, not just between financial institutions, but with the displaced communities themselves. State of Africa takes a short break, but when we come back, we'll tell you about the bold ideas and passionate insights shared beyond the panel at the Africa Forum on Displacement 2025. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching State of Africa, where we're discussing market-driven solutions for displaced communities. Now, beyond the panels, attendees at the Africa Forum on Displacement 2025 shared bold ideas and passionate insights, highlighting both the challenges they face and the untapped opportunities available to the private sector. Here's a look at that dynamic engagement.
I'd like to open up the floor very quickly to some questions. Okay, first mic, if we can get a mic over there. Any other questions? There we go. Oh, there's lots on this side. 1, 2, and I see a hand there, 3 as well. For now, let's take those 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm not asking more. This is for the audience. Okay.
Thank you. I think my questions will go to Salah and Wairimu. Thank you so much for the activities that you are doing in the refugees and the integrated community, that is Kalubiye and the host community. We looked at what works in terms of the market in the refugees. I also want to know what does not work and why is it not working? What can be done so that what is not working can work? You got
Great. Love the question. That's for you. Hold the thought. Hold the thought. Let's pass the mic on. Oh. Let's get the next question over there. Oh, you've got a mic. Go for it. Please ask, sir. Thank you.
Just 30 seconds. Remember, not everyone can become a business person in this world. We have also elderly, accompanied children, and people living with disabilities. What are you doing to those people who might not be able to take up these activities of maybe doing businesses? Demand and supply as well. Have you done your marketing to know whether there is purchase power that can be able to buy the product that the people are given these grants to maybe do businesses?
Okay, good. There we go. So we got. Please keep your answers in your head. I just want to get another question in. There we go. Thank you, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Abdul Karim Jama. I'm with the City University of Mogadishu. I want to address earlier, there was a comment about the refugee hosting countries. And in Somalia, we're known for producing a lot of refugees. But also, I wanted people to know that there are also some refugees hosted in Somalia from Syria, from Yemen, from Sudan, and they have very progressive policies where they're not required to have work permits renewed or visas staying or starting businesses. So that's just for information. My comment has to do with providing financing to IDPs and refugees. And we had the experience with some help of vetting banks, working with banks. We work with Amal Bank in Somalia. And they provide training, we provide support. And experience have been that over 100,000 in one organization dollars is spent. 100% of the money was returned, and it's in the second cycle. It would be good if larger organizations would provide additional funding for similar projects. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And then just one more comment, and then I'm going to come back to the panel. That's for you. There we go, next to you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Divine Mugisha. I'm a MasterCard Foundation scholar student, but I'm also a refugee from Zerika refugee camp in Malawi. So my question goes, I know the conversation has been surrounding Kakuma refugee camp, but what are some of the, funding opportunities or, financial accessibility for refugees from across the continent? We have refugees in Malawi, we have refugees in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, in Tanzania, who are also in the same situation, with the cutting funding of USAID. UNHCR is stopping to give support to refugees, but we have not yet held things like Shirika Pran or any other support that is coming in for refugees. So for Sarah and Thomas, I know you are an international organization. What are you doing to extend your support to other refugee camps apart from here in Kenya? My last question is about community-based organizations. We all know that we have so many CBOs that are doing an incredible job in refugee camps. How are you also going to support CBOs that are non-profit in order for them to also access funding, because they are doing a good job and they are driving big impacts in refugee camps?
Thank you. All right, let's come to the panel. Would you like to pick it up?
All right, maybe I'll start with the question on what has not worked, and maybe I'll reframe that question as what have been the challenges. So, like I said, we partner with our brother developmental institutions, let's put them that way, and there's been specific programs that we were unable to launch in certain jurisdictions. Maybe I shouldn't name them, I mean, that's not an important detail. But amongst the challenges which have sort of constrained deploying these in the way that we wanted to within these jurisdictions was regulatory issues related to banking, again related to KYC, compliance issues, collateral, those types of challenges. And the way around it, or the second best solution we found around that, was to actually deploy these resources within these communities. So the way we figured it was that this was an indirect way of developing these communities, in the sense that you're actually injecting funding over there, so you're growing the existing businesses and you're creating, by doing so, opportunities for job creation and financial inclusion as well, so that you can actually avail opportunities in an indirect way for the refugees within these communities. So that was the way around it, and again, those were the challenges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yeah, I would like to give you a few points on the questions, if I can.
Please.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say about what are the challenges and what... I don't want to flip the question over to the audience, but I think we, DFIs are able to invest at least in let's say at least in 3 sectors that I think are investable in the context of forced displacement: financial inclusion, financial services, energy, and agriculture. At least these 3 can be done, I think. What we need, I think, across the board is what we call market creation. We don't use that term at Proparco, but BI and FMO do. So we need bigger markets, less silos, so a commitment to build bigger markets through more refugee-friendly regulations, to open a business, to have a bank account, to get a loan. This is super important. Maybe unified systems, social systems in the humanitarian community to have cash transfers. So refugees have a credit history, a financial history when they enter the financial industry. That could help a lot. And more continuity between humanitarian efforts and developmental efforts as well. And that, it's going to take time, it's going to take years, but I think really it should be about enlarging the markets, and when the markets reach a critical size, you will see that investments will definitely happen. And I also wanted to say talk about financial innovation. It's one point I really wanted to say in the panel, is that financial innovation is important, but it shouldn't be seen as a magic formula, or we shouldn't have a tokenistic approach to financial innovation. It all starts with a sound business model and a growing market. If you don't have that, there's no level of financial innovation that can fix the issue. Financial innovation should not be an end in itself. It should be serving a purpose. Financial innovation can allocate risks among different financial players on a transaction, but it's not going to solve the issues of a business model that is not working, or a market that hasn't reached critical size. Regarding CBOs, just wanted to say that it's not Proparco's mission to finance CBOs, but we are part of a larger group from the French Development Agency, which is very committed to finance refugee-based organizations, and they have big programs for that.
Okay. Sarah Lynn, anything that you'd like to add? And the one question I know was a lot to do with other opportunities on the continent, because we have focused and spoken a lot about Kenya and Kakuma in particular, but not deliberately so. But I suppose because we are in Kenya, I know you operate in Kenya, but are there options for other refugees on the continent to come, for either one of you, I mean all of you, anybody on this panel, if you'd like to speak to that?
I think I could comment on the equity bank's reach, and essentially for the same products, financial products that we're offering to refugees in Kenya are available to refugees and forcibly displaced persons in the rest of the countries. The partnership that we are implementing with IFC is only in Kenya for now, but we are looking at scaling in case then we form enough evidence that enables us to scale to the rest of our jurisdictions. We are happy to do so. But in terms of the other forms of support that we offer to refugees and displaced persons, host communities, they span across all our 6 countries of operation in Africa.
Okay. I know there's one more question over there, and then unfortunately, far from one more. Okay, I've opened a can of worms. Let's quickly get that one over there. Question there.
Yeah, my name is Bizo. I'm a refugee based here in Nairobi. I'd like to commend Equity for the work we are doing, including all of you as well. We are doing great work for us as refugees. There is this program that Equity has developed on climate change across all the countries in the region. My question was, is there any particular consideration about the refugees in that particular program, or especially on climate change? You see, climate change is a global issue, and even refugees, wherever they are, they contribute on climate change in one way or another through their activities. Now, my question was, because refugees are restricted, they know the countries where they are restricted, they are not that free like any other nationals. Now, my question was, do you have any consideration in that project on climate change, that program you have across the countries in the region for refugees? My question, can some CBO led by refugees apply to come up with some projects and they submit to you for support? So that was my question. Thank you.
Anyone? Equity?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So again, given the development impact of climate change, I think under this collaboration with Equity Bank, under the risk sharing facility, any eligible green financing or climate change related projects are more than welcomed. Of course, there would be given a priority in that sense, because you have, like, let's put it this way, a double developmental angle to it: refugee support along with climate change support. So Sarah Lynn, if you want to add, please go ahead.
Yeah, so there's provision for support in terms of refugees and any other, because the IFC facility is focused on 20% refugees, and 80% of the facility is focused on other arid and semi-arid counties. So for anybody who's eligible, and we are particularly supporting SMEs, there is a provision, and of course a little bit of preference for persons who are focusing on climate-related initiatives. So it has a very strong component on ESG. So if you come forward and you're taken through appraisal as a CBO, and you qualify, and we have flexible appraisal templates because of this guarantee and the backing thereof, then if you qualify, you then are eligible to get the facility as an individual, or even as a CBO or whatever group you would be working with. So we can have that discussion.
So I unfortunately can't take any more questions on this one, but what I can do is I can get a guarantee for my guests, if that is at all possible. If people would like to approach you, get their questions answered, come and speak to you personally for some of the issues that they have. We've got Sarah Lynn from Equity Bank, and of course, it sounds like they're wonderful opportunities that people can get from you, Salah at IFC, and then of course, Thomas, thank you as well, from Proparco. So please, try and get to our guests, speak to them directly.
My name is Chol Matiop Chol, but most of my friends call me the only brown South Sudanese in Kenya so far. Don't doubt that, because if you go back to my place, you'll be surprised of how I look. I've studied here from nursery school, in Swahili we say chekechea, primary, high school, but my dreams of becoming a great journalist were shattered when my parents could not afford to pay for my university level. So just like any other person, I decided, let me just remain in the camp, see what happens for me next. But through that time of me staying in the camp, that is when I started developing my love for poetry. And as time went by, I asked myself, online I've been seeing a lot of opportunities that are being given in these urban areas, that is Nairobi, Nakuru, Eldoret. So I told myself, I'll have to go to one of these urban areas so that I can see if I'll get opportunities to nurture my talent. So years later on, I found myself in Nairobi. To be more specific, Githurai 45. It's somehow in Kiambu, but we call it in Nairobi, yeah? So years went by, I'll do performances here and there, thinking that one day, one time, my time will come. But 1 year went by, nothing was happening. I started doubting myself. 2 years went by, nothing happened. I started doubting myself. So I told myself, instead of focusing on this thing that is not giving me a source of income, and I'm in the urban areas where you need to have a source of income to live, why don't I get into something else? So a friend of mine, who happens to be a Kenyan, we studied with him back in primary school, tells me that I have an Airbnb business that I'm doing. And for you to get a source of income, why don't you help me out a bit, and then I'll be tipping you off. So 1 year after helping him out with this, I somehow got experience of this Airbnb business. So I told myself, if he's making money through this, then I can make it. So what do? I need to get finance to start this business. Where do I get it? I go back to my poetry work. I believed in myself, started doing poetry here and there. 1 year later on, I get a call from UNHCR, the Gigiri office. They tell me that we've seen a poem of yours that you had written titled Refugee, and we'd like to work with you. Long story short, after that opportunity working with the UNHCR, I started getting gigs here and there. Money started coming in. So I now started believing in myself that it's about time to be rich. I'm going to make some changes back at home. They're no longer just going to be depending on the ratio of food that they get each and every time. But still, when I went back to start the business, the money was not enough. So again, I went back into poetry. And it's through that time, I was able to meet the team from Amahoro Coalition. They gave me one of my biggest breakthrough. I got a call one evening that there's an event that is happening at Huru Gardens, and who's gonna be performing there? One of the biggest stars in Africa. We call him Mr. Obio Davido from Nigeria. So being given such a platform that we don't get most of the time back in the camp, I got exposed. And after that, my phone was not resting. I was getting calls after calls. I was getting calls after calls. I got booked and I was able to get some money to be able to start the business. And as a law-abiding refugee, if I may say, for you to start a business, what do you need? You need license, you need work permit, you need the KRA pin, right? So I took out my refugee ID, went to a cyber to go and apply for this KRA pin. But to my surprise, I was very innocent. I thought that it was about my time. I was told that this ID could not access the KRA pin. So I told myself, what do I do next? So I called my Kenyan friend, told him, I have the money here. So since I trust you so much, why don't we partner? I'll give you the money, right? Yes, he's a Kenyan. I know. So I give him the finance. Since he has the documentations, so he has the documents to get access to all this license, and he's already into the business. Why don't we start this business with you? You'll get a bit of percentage because you're doing most of the work. You're the one that is doing the documentations. So we start the business off. But behind the scene, I'm asking myself, until when will I rely on someone to do this business for me? There are refugees back in the camp that want to do this. So does it mean each and every time they'll have to look for a Kenyan so that they can get into business? So what am I trying to say? To any of the finance departments that are in here, let's start off with the Department of Refugees. Recently, I was very happy when I saw that the Shirika plan was being launched. This is an opportunity that can integrate us and give our documentations a chance to access these chances that we get. Because we're not going to be refugees forever. Someone at home right now that is watching this has the same story that I have, but he does not have this platform. So I'm here on behalf of them to tell you that give us an opportunity. I've studied here. Whatever that I've studied, let me put it into practice. Because it will be of no use if I go to school and then I just end up at home. The financial institutions also, please invest in the refugee business. You see, one thing that makes the financial institutions afraid, is the status of being a refugee. But one thing I can say is our status does not define our capability, right? I'll give you an example. For those of you guys that are familiar with Kakuma, there's a young man, I don't know if I should call him a young man, but there's a guy called Mosfin in Kakuma. This guy started off as a very small shop, and as we speak right now, he's one of the biggest wholesalers in Kakuma. He has not only employed refugees, he has employed the host community, that is the Turkana community that we've lived with all these years. So now my question is, how many refugees are in the camp that have the mindset like Mosfin, that can do these kind of businesses? So please, invest in us. Equity Bank, back in the days, I don't know if they're still doing this, but you are helping the primary people to get to high school, get into university. So extend your hand into their businesses that they're doing right now. For some of the people that you guys have educated are just at home. So what is the use of investing in the education and not extending it much bigger? So please, invest in refugees' businesses, and please make access to our documentations to be much easier. So make it easier for my stay to be much easier here by giving me access to these documentations and investing in what I have so that I can feed your daughter and my son. Thank you.
Well, that does it for this edition of State of Africa. We would like to hear your voice too. How can we shape better futures for displaced communities? Connect with us through our Aladi social media pages. Until next time, I'm Jeff Morte. Goodbye.